Okay, once you've completed part one, we'll move on to part two, where we're looking at volcanoes and earthquakes in relation to where they're located around the boundaries. And you'll open this PBS page that's similar to the first plate tectonic boundary page, but this one will focus mostly on earthquakes and volcanoes. When you're at this page, I would suggest first to click the plate boundaries box. That way you can at least see where all the plate boundaries are in relation to your map. In this activity, you're going to work with a partner to examine earthquake activities and volcano activities. Each person of that pair will take one of them. So one person will be looking at earthquake activities while the other will be working at volcanic activities. So for example, the individual using volcanic activity will click the box that states volcanoes, and you'll see many volcanoes that are distributed around the world. And what you will be doing on your map is creating triangles, let's see, orange triangles, along places where those volcanoes are most seen. So I'm going to again go to our split screen feature. And so, for example, there are several volcanoes along this coast of Chile. So what I'm going to do is look at my shapes, find my triangle, there you are. And since there are a lot here, I'm not going to put one triangle for each one. I'll put a little bigger triangle to represent all of those and move it into place. And I need to make my triangles orange. So I click off, let's see here. Oops, I just made the boundary orange. So let's go back and fill it in the whole way. There we go. So that would represent several of these volcanoes here. I would even suggest you can copy and paste some of those triangles to save yourself some time. I'm going to paste another one up here. And notice that these are much smaller in relation to these. So I'm going to make my volcano a little bit smaller here to help scale that a little bit. And anyway, you get the picture. You're basically going to try to do this in especially the areas of high volcanic activity. So you'll have a few large volcanoes over here. If you're looking over here, this is our ring of fire, lots of volcanic activity. As for the earthquake individuals, you will do something very similar. Now, there are a lot more earthquakes and volcanoes on here, so I would suggest, again, using bigger and smaller circles to represent the quantity. And also, you do not have to put tons of circles around these areas where there's not as many earthquakes. For example, here along the coast of California, several. Here, even though these are sporadic at the top coast of Africa, you don't need to put as many. However, as we scroll over here, we have lots and lots of earthquake activity. So again, use the sizes in your circles to help you make the most of every point that you're plotting on your map. So going back to the directions, one individual will do that for volcanic activity, while the other does that for earthquake. When each of you are done, you're going to update your key that you made in part one to show whichever you put on your map, and then you're going to share your complete map with your partner. As you share, you can discuss the similarities and differences between the locations of the earthquake and volcanoes and the boundaries. Were there any significant differences, similarities? Was there anything that you noticed in relation to convergent, divergent, transform boundaries as to the types of events that were happening there? And lastly, you must make at least 2 comments on one another's project. When you are done with all that, you may move on to part 3.